Baltimore, Maryland. It's one of the craziest cities I've ever been to. This city has been absolutely decimated. They have a huge homeless population with little to no true help available. It's so bad you'll often see tent cities right in the middle of the median as you make your daily commute to work. In addition to this, they have the second highest murder and overdose rate in all of America. In fact, this murder rate is even higher than many of the most dangerous Central American countries, like Honduras or even El Salvador. It's no surprise, though, when you dig a little bit deeper. The drug dealers freely roam the streets doing deals in broad daylight. And with such a lucrative market at stake, turf wars and shootouts are bound to happen. Combine this with an open-air drug market where the dealers literally flag you down to buy deadly, fentanyl-laced drugs, you have the perfect recipe for death and disaster. There's no shortage of places for dealers to hide their drugs or operations either. Vacant, condemned, and abandoned property litters the entire city. But how did things get this bad? Why isn't anyone doing anything to fix it? And what changes need to be made? I decided to dive in head first to find out more. I walked through some of the most dangerous hoods and drove through some of the areas hit hardest by addiction, homelessness, and untreated mental health. I was even able to find a few brave natives to act as my tour guides. And these were some very knowledgeable and top-notch tour guides. Except they used to shoot dope, prostitute, or had spent years behind bars in prison. Lisa was a former stripper and prostitute whose addiction to heroin started at 12 years old with her father. Mikey, on the other hand, was a former homeless drug addict who had been to prison multiple times. As a former addict myself, I knew that having someone with first-hand knowledge of the streets would be vital for discovering the truth. So with my mission in mind and my tour guides in tow, I set off to explore one of the most dangerous cities in America, a place where anything can happen.
So this is where you can get shot in broad daylight for nothing.
This is Baltimore. So we are going into a pretty dangerous area, is that right, Mikey?
Yeah, Southwest Baltimore is definitely a third world country, much like Kensington itself, but a little bit more crime, a little bit more violence and gangs, and obviously an open-air drug market that has a lot of abandoned houses, big problem in the city, trash, needles, vial caps everywhere, and it's just a disgusting scene. You know, people walk around like zombies, the dealers are out at all times of the day, and you know, it's a big problem that Baltimore has no idea what to do about it.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't Baltimore like top 5 in murder rate or something?
I think it's
like
top
that?
3.
Top 3?
I think it's top 3.
I thought so.
Yeah,
As of yesterday, the news said there's been 300 or 315 murders. One, it was about 3 days ago, a lady got murdered in a church down the street from my house, and I live in Baltimore County. They said out of those murders, less than half of the cases have been solved as of right now.
And that's where I want to take Richie here today so that he can get a glimpse into the area that I ran around homeless, living in tents, you know, carrying cardboard signs that said, "Give me $6," you know, and I did it for quite a few years.
Tell us about the testers a little bit more. What are these testers?
So testers, in Baltimore, everything is called pills, right? Heroin is sold in little clear capsules that kind of resemble a pill. It's mostly scramble. You'll never find like real heroin. It's scramble, which is bonita and quinine mixed with heroin and now mostly fentanyl. And the problem is they got $3 and $6 pills out on the street. You know, so it's very cheap to survive. You can hustle up, you know, $6 in about 5 minutes asking people for money. At one point I had a food stamp card, so I would just get cases and cases of water, and I would just sell waters $1 a piece. And then within, you know, an hour and a half, I'd have like $40, $50 to buy whatever I needed.
So what are these tents?
So basically the city and the police just turn a blind eye to the people that want to set up tents right here on the median. The reason they do it on the median, even though it's cold and it's obviously going to be a lot more windy and a lot more noisy, is because this is the busiest intersections where so many people stop at the red lights. They'll be stuck in traffic, and they'll just hop out of their tent and start panhandling while, you know, 40, 50 cars are backed up. And it's the lifestyle. They've taken a level of convenience to one of the most inconvenient ways of living that you could possibly think of.
So is it similar to Kensington? Like when I went to Kensington, I'd walk by and there was literally like, you know, like the newspaper boys used to be like, oh, papers here. There'd be people, we got boy, we got loud, we got crap, you know? Yep. Is that pretty much what they do here?
Boys,
just yell?
Boy is dope, girl is coke, you know, and then you got Cheryl, which means straight coke, powder coke, you know, shooter's coke. See?
What did he just say?
Nightmare.
What's that mean?
Nightmare is probably a brand of dope.
Ooh. So they got their own brands of dope too, huh? So like
every corner's got its own little batch.
So then like if you're out here doing dope, like you'll be like, dude, the dope on the corner of 5th and Monroe is like fire. That Nightmare dope, dude. It's so good. You get it $6 a pill.
They got Dead Man, at least back when I was doing it. Remember.
Was there any like specific area? Like was it much different than other places?
So
like that you'd be like,
here
hey, I
in
go
this
to that
corner
area.
is going to be different from what was just there on the corner we just passed.
So is each corner controlled by a different gang?
Yeah, each corner is pretty much controlled by a different crew. You know, and it's not every corner. Sometimes it's a couple block radius. But it's, you know, the best way to find something is to ask the addicts on the street. You know, the ones that have already been through their day. They're going to know, because it might be that, you know, that's good on a Wednesday, but on Friday it's bullshit and something else is better. So
Gotcha.
That's what everybody does around here. There's like, yo, what's good around here? And then they'll call out a name and you'll be like, all right, well, where the fuck is that at? And they tell you a street, and, you know, it's just up to you to find it.
That is interesting. It's almost like, you know, like, all right, do I want to go to Walmart today for my dope, or do I want to go to Target today for my dope? You know, there's just different little brands and strains and shit. That's wild.
I said, this is where you can get shot in broad daylight for nothing.
And we got a GoPro on top of the car, and I'm holding a selfie camera.
Too, man. You know?
We're just driving through the hood with the GoPro strapped on top of the car.
These are all abandoned houses right here, and you used to just be able to knock on one of these doors, and they would they'd say how many. It was all tools. Each one was $2 a piece, and you just pass the money through the little slot in the cardboard, and they hand you a fresh tool.
No shit. So you just walk up, you literally just walk up to the house, and they'll just give you needles?
Didn't matter who you were.
Wow.
And pretty much anybody who knew about it is obviously in the know. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that's the needle house. That's their hustle. They sell needles out of the abandoned
Give you a little
house.
piece of chore and 2 cigarettes for $1. I think it's somewhere around 800,000 abandoned homes in Baltimore City.
Wow.
And it's cheaper to house the homeless in these areas, but it's real hard to do it because there's so much you know, danger with some of these old houses. You got lead, you got asbestos, you got floors that are all rotted, beams that are rotted, ceilings that could fall at any time, you know. So there's a liability issue in there with some of it. But the same problems exist over and over and over and over and over again, despite how much money they receive in grants, and the money just never goes to where it needs to go.
Yeah, it is really sad to see. Like, there's so much vacant property, but there's so many homeless people. You know, you would think you could take some of that money, revamp some of these properties, and put some like life back in the city and kind of revitalize the city, but it just doesn't seem to happen in a lot of these big cities.
They get tens of millions of dollars a year to do that, in federal aid to do that, and they don't fucking do it. It's like, where does the money go?
Kind of like the you know, hundreds of millions of dollars they set aside to tackle the opiate epidemic. Where it really ends up going is a lot of these methadone clinics that we're driving you guys past right now.
And it is this little skate park, but this is like all full of addicts all the time.
Oh, fuck, this looks fucking crazy.
Normally that's full. That's like a shooting gallery. Up here on the hill, people hide out and camp out and all that shit because that's where the train tracks are, right above it. And that's like the home away from home. You know what I mean? There's people that don't want to go into the abandoned buildings. You know, you can get robbed and killed in the abandoned buildings too. You know, we hit out one night just trying to do a shot, and when we got in there, my man was like, yo, there's dope all over the floor. And I looked down, and damn sure enough, there ain't like, you know, 20, 30 pills of dope, halfway filled, 3/4 way filled.
Oh,
that's
shit,
right,
look
12
at
o'clock,
this.
boys. That's right, y'all. That's right.
So yeah, what are these dudes on the mopeds doing? What are they?
Mopeds, they're dirt bikes.
What are they doing on the dirt bikes?
That's their way to beat the system, bro. That's their way to beat the violence. That's their way to.
Oh, for real? So they don't like sell drugs and shit? They just.
I'm sure some of them do. Don't get it twisted, But that's their thing. Yeah, we had all these dope pills all over the floor in this abandoned house, and I'm like, what the hell, man? So we start looking at it, testing it. Damn sure enough, that ain't real dope. And I'm like, why don't this be a stash house? So as soon as I said that, there's like a little fucked up cupboard and a stove inside of the joint, right? My man opens up the cupboard, ain't nothing in there, and I open up the stove, right? And as soon as I open up the stove, there was like a big bundle. It was like a 100 pack of dimes of Coke.
That's do not enter.
Oh shit! It's like 100 pack of dimes of Coke and big ones. And I said, we gotta go. Grab it, we gotta go. Right? So sun's getting ready to come up. He puts it in his hoodie pocket. We don't want to go out the same way that we came in on this abando, right? Because we had to like pull this plywood apart. So I ran and jump kicked this piece of plywood in the back and kicked it out the window. And then like we jumped over the little windowsill into the backyard, which was like an 8-foot drop. And the backyard was like a dump ground with all these tires and fucking cinder blocks and dangerous pieces of wood with nails and shit. And then there was this huge fence. It was like an obstacle course, like an American Ninja Warrior kind of shit. We had to get over it. Got over this huge fence, and like we both landed in the middle of the alley from over the fence. And as soon as our feet hit and like we stood up and got ourselves together, all of a sudden you hear this "Ayo" from behind us, right? And it's all these dealers, like 4 or 5 of them. The sun's coming up and they're walking down the alley that we're halfway in the middle to. And something just told me right then and there. They were like, yo, we're good, how many of y'all need? And I was like, yo, I ain't got no money yet, I gotta get to the ATM. And something just told me they were walking to that same house that we literally just came out of, because there was nowhere else to go but that place. So like they're about halfway at the beginning and we're in halfway in the middle. And I looked at my man, I said, yo, we gotta get to the end of the street, like calmly, walk calmly. And then as soon as we get around the corner, we just brake, start running, right? And that's exactly what we did, man. We hid out for like 2 hours because we were too scared to leave, and then made our way back to the car. And the sun was fully up and got out of there. But, that was one of them situations where if it would have been, 5 minutes before, even if we didn't know what was in that stove, we could have got killed just for being in there getting high. You know what I mean? That's their territory. That's where they're keeping their drugs. They ain't going to let nobody live after that. So right here where this little train bridge is up in front of us, there's this little cut to the right-hand side. It's all filled with ivy, but there's stone steps, and they start to go up. And you can walk up these steps right here. See how it's kind of blocked off, barricaded. Go into there, and that was like the little chill spot. Needles, caps. Is a vial.
Oh shit, it's still got a little bit in there.
Obviously still got some Coke left in it.
Yeah, you can see just tons of needles everywhere. Empty vials of Coke and other drugs as well too. Oh, there's one uncapped. So there's a needle uncapped.
I'm glad the girls ain't with us on this one.
Yeah, I feel a little more comfortable at just being me and you and no chicks with us back here. You never know what can pop off back in an area like this, right?
I've seen people get stabbed right on them train tracks. They leave you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, who's gonna fucking find you? If the person that's coming up that finds you ain't just trying to, hide out and do their drugs anyway. Who's going to call the police?
The following scenes truly shocked me. Here in the middle of a huge city, you have a small wooded area filled with drugs, needles, and even human feces. As we continued our trek through the woods, you could literally smell the poop in the air. It seemed as if Amber Heard herself had taken refuge here soon after the lawsuit with Johnny Depp. But seriously, it's so sad to see what could be a beautiful piece of nature in the middle of a city completely destroyed and turned into a literal dumping ground. As I walked further up the hill, I saw dirty mattresses, discarded toys, car seats, trash, and even TVs, which the homeless will often do their best to salvage and make use of. I've even seen homeless populations hook up TVs to unknown power sources and watch Netflix underneath the bridges. Later on, we found a grill in the middle of this encampment, which had recently been used. You see, the homeless are incredibly resourceful when it comes to surviving on the street, but it's truly heartbreaking that they have so few options for help that they feel like scavenging is their best option at survival. As we emerged from the woods back into the ghetto of Baltimore, Mikey warned me that this would be the most dangerous part of our journey. Most of the dealers and users are incredibly suspicious of any clean-cut Caucasians who are not buying or selling drugs. And with suspicion and mistrust of the police at an all-time high in Baltimore, we very likely could be mistaken for undercover cops, especially while filming and carrying around a camera.
Obviously, you can tell the glass was busted out. I'd have made that a home away from home in the middle of the night, just to try and get warm. You know, there was many nights where I would forcibly put myself in a hospital just so I could have a warm bed for the night. But even if you OD or say you're ODing or you want to kill yourself, they'll literally keep you in there for like 2 hours and then they're rushing you back out. You can't fall asleep in a waiting room. You know, they'll kick you right back out on the street. I OD'd, got Narcan twice, and got let back out 2 hours later. And as I'm walking out of the hospital, I OD'd again on the street, just from walking from the same shot of dope that I did, 4 or 6 hours earlier. And that's kind of how they treat you.
As we continued our walk deeper into the city, we came across many abandoned houses like this. Even though these buildings were half destroyed and literally falling apart, you could tell many of the homeless called these places home, despite the fact they had taken on a hybrid role of half house, half dumping ground. And with so many houses like this scattered throughout the city, it really makes you wonder why no one has made an effort to transform these properties or clean up the city. We found an old bed with blankets someone had used to stay warm the night prior, as well as the usual needles, containers filled with drug residue, and other paraphernalia. This was in a neighborhood filled with children, and some of the needles were uncapped. In fact, I almost stepped on this one here. I potentially could have got hepatitis C, HIV, or some other bloodborne illness. One surprising thing I found here, though, were packages of Narcan. Narcan is, of course, the drug used to reverse overdose. I myself have been saved by this drug many times during my own active addiction, and it's the only reason I'm here alive today, helping people. Narcan's absolutely vital because we have to keep people alive long enough for them to be able to go and to get help. I can understand some controversy about, needle exchanges, other things like that, or safe injection sites, whatever, but at the very least, we need more Narcan because it does save a lot of lives. The people aren't the only ones affected by this destruction. The animals here suffer as well. This cat was very friendly, but was clearly malnourished. I gave it what little food I had left, and as we said our goodbyes to the kitty cat, we reached the deepest parts of the hood. As you can see, the area is mostly trashed and abandoned, with no effort made to improve the area. These are the places where many dealers hide their drugs or conduct many of their operations. The homeless will also take refuge here as well, and many addicts will come here to shoot dope or even buy fresh needles. But in the midst of all this chaos, I uncovered something very special and truly unique. This is definitely one of the worst areas that I've been to for sure. This and Kensington are right up there with how hard the addiction epidemic has hit everybody. And believe it or not, this is like a nicer part of town that we're actually walking through right now, believe it or not. We're about to hit some of the other tougher areas. Yeah, it's wild. You see houses like this over here where, there's houses and then half of them are abandoned. You see plywood over the doors half the time. And there's a lot of work to be done over here.
And then you got little pockets like this with good, upstanding, tax-paying citizens that work hard and have nice housing, and and they live right in the middle of all of it.
Stuff like this I always find really interesting too, because you'll see like 2 normal houses, and then you'll see like 2, of these abandoned properties, and clothes there. There's probably somebody living in there right now, just hiding out, shooting dope, like Mikey had mentioned before, and it's just interesting to me, like how much chaos there is in the midst of some of these oasis pockets where people are trying to live normal lives, You do see some beautiful artwork in the city here like this. It's almost like the proverbial rose through the concrete, right? You know, there's a lot of beauty that's hidden in a lot of this chaos. I don't want to paint Baltimore as just a bad, grimy place, because it's not all that, but there's certainly parts that are rough. But I mean, in the middle of it, you have things like this. You have people like this as well, too. Really good people like Mikey that are trying to do better, that are trying to better themselves, that might have been to prison for many, many years, that have came out of it and have now become better people. Soon after this, Mikey and I began to be followed. It was clear they wanted their presence known and that we were no longer welcome, as we soon saw an all-black, tinted-out SUV roll up on us more than a few times. Later, there were several individuals that started to follow us as well. Mikey told me to put the camera away and remain calm. We slowly but surely made our way back to the car, and we go into full details of this at the end of the video. But first, let's hear a little bit more from Lisa and what it was like to shoot up dope with your father at 12 years old. This story will truly shock you.
This is the house where my dad shot me up for the first time. This is where I lived when me and my dad were homeless and I was 12 years old. We used the restroom in buckets. There was no electricity, nothing like that. Our first night here, actually, the next morning, police came in with one of those big wooden logs, banging on the door, you know, until we finally opened it. There was probably, I want to say 15 to 20 people that stayed in this house, you know, prostitutes and just random people. It was a mess, and it was very overwhelming being 12 years old, you know, in a empty house here in Baltimore City. But this is the house where it all began. The first time one of my family members stuck a needle in my arm was here in this house behind me.
I thought that if I let them get it out of their system, maybe by the time it was time for them to go out and face the world, they'd had the experience, and I use the phrase, the allure of the forbidden. If you remove that, that's a whole lot of, because I was fighting, scratching, doing anything, being sneaky. Kids don't sneak out the window if they're allowed to leave the house. You dig what I'm saying? There's a whole lot of things kids won't sneak and do if they're allowed to do it. And in a lot of cases, they won't do it. If they're allowed to do it, they'll go, why would I want to do that? A lot of times, kids do things just because they're not supposed to. Like smoking cigarettes. Who the fuck would... It's just nasty. Kids do it because they're not allowed to. It's the allure of the forbidden. And you'll fight, choke, spit, puke, and then smoke another one, just for the thrill of doing something you're not supposed to. Oh, it didn't work. You know, let me just emphasize that. It didn't work.
It's not completely your fault, though. As I said earlier, I used you as an excuse for a really long time because that's the best damn excuse I've ever heard as to why someone is an addict.
Well, there's a reason it was a good excuse. Because it was a good excuse.
Well, I know, and people pity the hell out of you. If they hear what my reason was, you automatically are greeted with pity. So I used it as an excuse. But what wound up happening was, let's say that somebody plays baseball with their father, right? And that's where their connection lies. So they might go to a baseball field, you know, to feel that connection. I missed my dad so badly. I went around places and around people that made me feel that connection with my dad and where I felt comfortable. And so my dad had no way of knowing that that was going to happen. And of course, he wasn't in the right frame of mind because he was a drug addict. But I wanted to be around people that were using. I wanted to be in crack houses. I wanted to be around that environment because that's where I felt safe. That's where I felt the connection to my father. And I missed him like crazy. And I couldn't see him, but I could see the environment where I felt like I was at home.
What was that, man? Way to go, Dad.
You had no way of knowing that that was going to happen. And that's why I knew that I had to forgive you for that. Because you didn't know that was going to happen.
And you had a shit ton of drama as a little kid. A shit ton. of not being seen or heard or feeling loved and having to go off into a world in your own head that felt safe, like,
Yeah.
in the way that you reasoned out things?
Well, my first memory was being at the dinner table. I know I was 2.5 years old. The reason I know that is because that's exactly how much older I am than my brother. I was in diapers, I'm sure. And he was in the next room in a high chair, and we were all eating dinner. And my father and mother were screaming. I remember my father standing up and whipping a full cup of coffee at her. I remember the way it splattered on the wall up high by the ceiling. The cup flew into the next room and hit my brother's high chair and broke some wood off of it. And I have a brother named Roy, and he didn't say anything. He just got up and went into the bedroom, started loading up a 12 gauge. He was going to come out and shoot my father. My mother went in and stopped him. You know, it's the first thing I remember. It's like I don't remember anything before that.
I really appreciate you opening up and being vulnerable. I know it's a hard fucking thing to talk about, but that's why I wanted to do this, is because somebody will hear a story like that, not just your story, like my story too. They'll see me as a heroin addict and they'll see the opportunities that I had. They're like, why the fuck did he do that? It doesn't make sense.
Yourself is the hardest person to forgive anybody else and to forgive myself, because I went down to Florida and I thought I was going down for a 30-day treatment, and turned out it was 6 months. You talk about pain, mental anguish, self-hate, self-fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity, self-hate. I just thought, you know, I was such a piece of shit. I was doing everybody a favor by getting out of their life, and I stayed down there for 7 years, and I didn't realize.
You were wrong, though.
I didn't realize how bad I hurt her and my other daughter, because I thought that was the best thing I could do for them.
In some ways it might have been, but you were all I had. I really fucking needed you. You weren't a good parent, but you were my only friend.
I can tell you guys both love each other a lot.
You were always a good kid.
Well, there was a lot of years you guys were pretty much you were the only people you guys had, right?
I couldn't talk to anyone other than my dad. My mom didn't talk to me at all. She did not give a fuck about anything that was happening in my life. Like he just said, he left because he thought that he was doing us a favor. On one hand, maybe he was, but to me it wasn't like, oh, he's a bad influence, so it's a good thing that he left. That's not what you're thinking when you're a kid.
You're just thinking, I lost my best friend. I lost the one person I can talk to and that I trust.
She had it really rough. I gotta tell you, there's a lot of things I wish I could go back and do. I wish I could go back and, you know, just be a lot better man for her. She deserves it. What can I say? I wasn't fit to be around, you know?
This is just the tip of the iceberg with this story. As you can imagine, a father shooting up heroin with his daughter has more than a few plot twists. Make sure you guys hit subscribe and ring the bell icon so you can get notified of my next video, where I have a full 40-minute interview with these two. This story is both tragic and inspirational. But after our interview, I still had so many questions. For example, where is the help for all these struggling people in this dying city? Is corruption, in particular with law enforcement, really as rampant as people say? To find this out, I met back up with Mikey and Lisa and continued to drive around the city to learn more.
This is Baltimore Behavioral Health, and it's kind of like a health clinic. It goes into this junction center and shopping center out there, right? We can pull around in front of that shopping center.
Oh, look, it says medication management and everything.
Through the fence.
I used to sleep right there at night, because this was kind of like a safe spot off the cut, and I could smoke crack there, be shielded from the wind. But this is Baltimore Behavioral Health right here, BBH, 1001 West Pratt Street. That's the smoking pit right over there.
Is that where people would buy the dope, Lisa?
Yes, through
Right
the
there?
fence.
Through that?
In treatment, right? And you're right here in the heart of the city, and then right across the block, spin that camera, right across the block, they're all standing there right there, pitching dope, coke, whatever, every time you come out for a cigarette.
And that's why I always tell people too, it's so important that if you can, to get out of your hometown area to go and get clean, because if your dope man is down the street or even 10 minutes away, it's going to be really hard to not just leave and go cop when you're feeling sick. There's a fucking teddy bear strung up on the light post. Oh my God. Patrice, give us your thoughts. How has your Baltimore experience been?
Pretty interesting. I'm just taking it all in.
Yeah. Is this a lot different than where you grew up at?
Yes.
Yeah. This is a lot different than Ohio and Pennsylvania, that's for sure.
And the police in Baltimore are a hell of a lot different than in a lot of different places, right? That's one of the major cop spots right there. So I remember them giving me a choice. They caught me with like 6 dimes or something, 6 dimes of dope and a couple cokes, and they were like, "Listen, you want an ass whipping or you want to go to jail?" And I was like, "What the fuck you mean?" And they said, "You want an ass whipping? You want to go to jail?" I said, "Definitely give me an ass whipping." So they literally beat the shit out of me. It was 2 cops. One smacked me up against the wall, hit me in the stomach a couple times, got punched in the face, kicked on the ground while I was down. And then before they left, they were about to take all the drugs. And I was like, "Yo, you just gonna whip my ass and leave me here like that, not even give me my shit back?" And the one officer looked in his hand. He was like, "Here, you can have one of each," and then dropped them on the ground. And then they all walked away. That's how Baltimore City works.
So the one time the police pulled us over and they knew we were down here to cop, but we hadn't copped yet. And so when they pulled us over and they searched us, they were pissed and they dropped some dope in the car. They set us up. Well, the car wound up, they took the car, got arrested. And when we went and got the car, the bags of dope that they put in the car was still in the car. They didn't take it back out, and that was some of the best dope we had ever had.
The cop dope?
Yeah, but that's one of the things that the cops will do. If they want you and you haven't copped yet, but they know that that's what you're here for, sometimes they'll do things like that.
I was always honest with them. When you're honest with them, then they give you a little bit more leeway. If you try to be like, "Oh, I'm down here visiting my cousin and shit,"
yeah,
they're like, "We know you ain't got no motherfucking cousin that lives here, so what's up? What are you really doing?" I was just always honest. Like, "Hey, I came down to cop," and then most of the time, 9 times out of 10, they just leave you alone.
So, after a very eventful day of uncovering some of the darkest secrets of the underground drug world of Baltimore, and almost getting shot, we returned to my hotel to recap what had happened throughout the day, in particular when we started being followed in the middle of the hood. I'm gonna come out and say right now, I feel like we almost got shot today. I really do. I feel like it was very close, and Mikey just kept telling me, he's like, Baltimore, it can be cool to you if you're cool, but it can flip in an instant, and you can just get stabbed or you can get shot. And it was a very real possibility for us as we were walking through there, and the whole mood, the whole atmosphere kind of changed partway through, and I could tell, we're in the middle of some shit right now. I think we got scoped out. I think that they, radioed each other, messaged each other, however it is they communicate and say, "Hey, there's some 2 suspicious people just walking around filming stuff." We were walking in this black tinted out SUV just skirts up to us real quick, pulls up real abruptly and just stops next to us. And me and Mikey kind of step up our walking speed a little bit. I felt like somebody was gonna jump out and try and jump us or kidnap us or something.
I feel like that was definitely a signal. They're following. "Yeah, we see you. What are you doing down here?" And pulled up on us real quick. There was plenty of other places to pull or to park. And we're walking on a sidewalk, and on either side of the street is and it's a one-way street, by the way. On either side of the street, it's tall buildings, so it's pretty much shielded from any type of view. Anything could happen right then and there, and nobody would know. Whoever did it would get away with it. That's kind of the area we were in, where people have obviously been shot in broad daylight and
stabbed in broad daylight, robbed in broad daylight.
Police never solve it.
We stick out like a sore thumb. We don't look like addicts today. We don't look like drug dealers today. And I'm carrying around this thing, filming my videos, getting some B-roll, looking at the graffiti, looking at the needles on the ground everywhere, all the abandoned buildings. Mikey's showing me all the places he used to get high and stuff. And
There's lots of drug dealers on every corner and lots of watchers on every corner that are just looking at us like, why is this bald-headed guy running around with a camera?
Right, and I don't know if y'all can like kind of see the resemblance here, but his shiny bald head does not really scream, hey, I'm not a cop. So
Right.
it was a little nerve-wracking, right? And there was a couple experiences that we had that only as today, as somebody who's not using and who can recognize like tension in the air and who can recognize like a gut feeling and say, hey, I should probably listen to this.
And as we were walking further along down the street, we're walking and we see this person like kind of peek around this brick corner and look at us. And me and Mikey look at each other and we're like, yep. And we both cross the street at the same time. We go across the street, and as we're walking, we look over to our right where that person like peeked their head out, and there's like 3 other dudes there. And I'm pretty sure that they were like stick-up boys or something, right? That they were probably going to try and jump us and steal our stuff or rob us or whatever if we would have walked by. But I think since we crossed the street, kind of was a signal to them like, hey, we know what's up. Like, we're not easy targets. You should probably pick somebody else,
Right.
you know? I remember we walked up to this group. There was like 3 people outside smoking crack. There was a dealer sitting on a milk carton doing the milk crate challenge, apparently. No,
Yeah,
I'm
right.
just playing.
Right.
But yeah, they asked it. We walked by and they're like, hey, where's the ho-hos at, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the fuck are the ho-hos? I don't know. So we kept walking. But Mikey, what did you get the vibe from them when they asked where the ho-hos at?
Little Debbie's, right? Little Debbie's are kind of attributed to the police, so that maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Like
he
they thought that we were cops or
yeah,
something?
he was like, where the ho-hos at? I know that they're in your bag. We outstayed our welcome. We were definitely walking around in areas that were high drug action areas. Obviously didn't buy or purchase any drugs, and then here we are being looked at as like, why are these people down here? If they're not buying drugs, what are they doing? You know, we're not contributing to any of the block or the corner boys. Maybe it's about time we just kept it walking and walked to the car,
kept
right?
going.
On our way out.
Yeah, no, as we're rolling out of the city, we get a chance to see this beautiful sunset. I think it's kind of fitting.
Beauty and the madness.
Yeah.
I have a dream, and it's a dream I hope you share with me. That together, we can raise awareness about the intricacies of drugs and alcohol addiction, mental health, homelessness, and childhood trauma. Most people don't understand that over 80% of those struggling with addiction have some form of untreated trauma or other mental health issue. This is a problem we clearly cannot arrest our way out of, but also a problem we can't just enable our way out of either. It's a complex social issue that has to be understood from the bottom up, starting at the street level by those hit hardest. And that's why I decided to risk my life, traveling to all 50 states and visiting these communities hit hardest, both large and small. This isn't an issue that's limited to our large urban communities. Heroin, crack, coke, and fentanyl is being sold right in our own backyard, regardless of where you live or how nice your community is. I myself won a state title in track. I played football. I scored in the 98th and 99th percentile for writing and reading on the ACT. I was an All-American kid from a great family that loved me. However, due to my untreated mental health issues, growing up without a father, and being prescribed 2 deadly and addictive legal opiates after a sports injury, I became an All-American addict instead. If people understood that this could happen to anyone, including their own children, they may find a little more compassion for those suffering on the streets. You see, I have a dream that together we can truly make a change and start treating the real cause of addiction and homelessness, which is childhood trauma, mental health, and a lack of coping and life skills. And when we start offering more help for mental health and reintegrating these people into our communities, then and only then will we begin to make a change to this problem. This is only the beginning. I'm going to be traveling to all 50 states to uncover why addiction, homelessness, and mental health issues are at an all-time high here in the home of the free and the land of the brave. If you enjoyed the video and would like to see more free mini documentaries like this, here are a few ways you can help. 1. Like the video and hit that subscribe button and bell icon. That way you can get notified each time I put a new video out. 2. Send this video to a friend. Post it to Reddit or any other Facebook or social media groups that it may be relatable to. 3. Follow me on these social media platforms to see my journey in real time. I'll be doing live videos and doing shorts and other written posts to keep you guys updated along the way. 4. Consider making a donation or joining my Patreon to get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to these videos and interviews before they're released, or even take an exclusive ride along with me while I make this documentary. Links are in the description down below. I hope you'll join me. Please make sure you like and share this video and join me in my journey. Thanks, guys.